Hello and welcome to another amazing webinar from our virtual event series of OneAquaHealth project. My name is Alexander Nikolov and I'm working for Senior GmbH based in Vienna, and we're coordinating the dissemination communication work package. The purpose of these online gatherings is twofold. Firstly, we seek to disseminate the valuable knowledge we have acquired during our project, and secondly, to engage with a broader network of interested parties. This includes specialists in personal health, urban environmental health, and rehabilitation of water habitats, as well as legislators and innovators from all over Europe and elsewhere. We aim to gather more insights about unmet needs and potential areas for innovation within this sector and incorporate this new information into our ongoing project. Over the next 2.5 hours, the audience will be introduced to the OneAquaHealth project with a concise overview of some of its key actions. The agenda will feature a presentation by Ms. Maria Feio, the coordinator of OneAquaHealth project from the University of Coimbra, Portugal, focusing on the methodologies for testing indicators and conducting experiments. This part of today's event presentation will provide valuable insights into the scientific approaches underpinning the project. The program will then transition to introduction of the 5 research sites integral to the OneAquaHealth project. Presentations by leading organizations each site will detail the data collection and analysis activities taking place. Further, the agenda will include presentations on non-OneAquaHealth sites, highlighting their role in supporting the project's long-term sustainability. Here at this point, I would like to ask our dear colleague Gora to provide a brief introduction to the invited speakers.
Great, thank you very much, Alex. And it is indeed my pleasure. My name is Gora Dada. I'm the HL7 representative on this project, dealing with standards and related activity. It is indeed my pleasure and honor to invite our non-project site speakers on this call. We have Cosmina Stalidi talking about the Mobilis project, a very fantastic European Union project, which has some relevance. We'll soon see what we are doing in OneAquaHealth. And then following that, we go across the pond and go to the US, and we'll have Dr. Catherine Keating from the Water Institute, and she will describe to us some of the very fascinating work she and her colleagues are doing in the space. And finally, we come back to Europe, and Corina Constantine of KPMG will provide a very fascinating perspective of how that organization is working in this space of climate change impact across the different countries in the European Union. And so we are really happy to have the 3 speakers come and share their knowledge with us. With that, back to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Gora. The event will conclude with an open discussion, inviting all webinar participants to engage actively. Before closing, a short introduction to OneAquaHealth community will outline its role in fostering knowledge exchange, ensuring the sustainability of the project efforts. The webinar is scheduled to end promptly at 6:30. Before we move on now to today's agenda, I would like to highlight our today's housekeeping rules. Namely, our virtual event will be recorded and posted on the OneAquaHealth Open Information Hub in order to ensure, according to the rules of open access scientific information, that all collected insights are openly accessible for all interested parties and can support further development activities in the field. Feel free to ask questions anytime in the chat option. We'll do our best to answer them during the event. That being said, I would like to present you shortly OneAquaHealth project and its great activities and goals. The project OneAquaHealth is a research and innovation action funded by the European Horizon Research and Innovation Program with a duration of 4 years and budget of almost 5 million euros. The background of the project goes back to the role of urban aquatic ecosystems as extremely relevant connections between people, animals, and plants, making cities more biodiverse and sustainable. Yet these ecosystems are often degraded, which can lead to the emergence of pathogens, decrease in the disease resistance, climate change impacts, and health concerns in the cities. Against this background, OneAquaHealth project seeks to protect and restore urban freshwater ecosystems and human health by designing and developing AI-assisted tools to identify early warning indicators and enhance environmental monitoring. The project will develop digital tools, an environmental surveillance system, a decision and support system, and citizen science app to raise awareness and engage all relevant stakeholders who will collect, analyze data, provide recommendations, and raise awareness and engagement. Last but not least, OneAquaHealth will fill the knowledge gaps and improve the policies for managing urban aquatic sites. To achieve these ambitious aims, the project consortium brings together 13 partners and practitioners working in the areas of ecology, biodiversity, freshwater ecosystem, ecological assessment, human health and public health, veterinary, social sciences and humanities, and arts and digital health. The project follows an interdisciplinary approach that crosses, as mentioned, various sciences and is based on the achievement of the following objectives that you can see on this slide. First, OneAquaHealth seeks to understand the links between the health of aquatic ecosystems and human health, and based on the collected insights to identify the level of their integrity. It further aims to determine the environmental parameters that would allow predicting disease outbreak risks related to aquatic ecosystem degradation and may constitute early warning indicators. Additionally, observation data for monitoring early warning indicators collected by the various sources, such as, among other, satellite imagery, will be integrated into an environmental surveillance system to support decision makers to act upon early warnings. OneAquaHealth will design and develop decision support system to deliver clear and complete information arising from project activities. Dashboards available on the Open Information Hub, which is our main communication channel, will be created to visualize the aggregated information. Last but not least, OneAquaHealth will seek to engage stakeholders to contribute to the early warning system by developing a citizen science app and developing innovation dissemination actions. The technical solutions are vital to the project expected policy and societal outcomes. Predictive models will run scenarios for various conditions, integrate into the hub to enhance decision makers' capacity to detect environmental changes. The OneAquaHealth decision support system will provide alerts, recommendations, and actions to restore ecosystem health, mitigating risk to human health. City dashboards accessible via the OneAquaHealth Open Information Hub will present results through infographics and data visualization, enabling public institutions and citizens to manage analytics and early warning services. A mobile app, which I already briefly mentioned, will facilitate environmental observation, offering data access through optimized visuals. Last but not least, the Open Information Hub will serve as a central platform housing project information, outputs, and decision-making tools. The project uses a research cities approach to involve citizens in science, testing the project tools and getting feedback on them, and spreading and using the project results. OneAquaHealth works in 5 research cities or sites in the urban areas of Coimbra in Portugal, Toulouse in France, Benevento in Italy, Ghent in Belgium, and Oslo in Norway. In terms of the expected project impacts, OneAquaHealth aims to advance insights into environmental observation within One Health, enhancing the ability to trace environmental changes and their impact on disease emergence. Through innovative digital solutions, the project will enable long-term ecosystem monitoring, empowering decision makers to act swiftly and preserve aquatic ecosystem integrity. Additionally, it will improve understanding of infectious disease emergence and spread while preventing valuable insights into alerts and early warning systems. That being said, I would like to pass now the floor to the more interesting part of our today's webinar and to our very first presentation, which will be done by Ms. Maria Feio.
So the OneAquaHealth concept is based on the idea that the health of freshwater ecosystems and the human health and well-being are interconnected, especially when we are speaking about cities and urbanized areas. So this means that if we improve the ecosystems, we'll improve the balance between the nature and the humans, and so the human health, but also the animals and plants health, so the One Health. Next slide, please. When the rivers and the streams, the ecosystems are healthy, we say that they provide several important ecosystem services. And these services, they are linked to their biodiversity and also to the processes and functions that happen there. So the ecosystems will provide us things like water, food, like fish, for example. Also a regulation of the water quality by filtrating the water, or of air quality by the filtration of the air by the plants, for example, the riparian trees, but also things like climate regulation by mitigating the extremes of high temperatures with the water and with the vegetation and shadow and with the humidity, and also flood mitigation, but they also provide several important cultural services. These are the ones that are linked to recreation, aesthetics, the ability to provide places to relax and make some physical exercise, for example, or to education. And I have here some examples of this. Next slide, please. So regarding climate regulation, for example, the vegetation in the margins of the streams, and we are speaking about small streams, but also larger rivers, they can decrease the temperature in the city. So right next to the streams, the temperature can be lower. For example, here we measured up to 10 degrees less. And this is very important in Mediterranean areas, in dry areas, and also will become more and more important even in the north of Europe or the north of North America, for example. Another example in the next slide is the flood mitigation service. So usually people think that if they have a river or stream nearby, there is a higher risk of getting their houses or the roads will be flooded more easily because the water, when there's a lot of water, the water comes out and can cause damages. However, this happens because of the high impervious areas that are in the margins of the streams and rivers in urban areas. So when there is not the care to preserve some natural soils where the water can infiltrate, and also the vegetation that retains the water, for example, with their roots, when this doesn't happen, so here on the right side, it means that the water will get out of the channel, will not return through the aquifers or the interstitial zone, but will just run over the sidewalks, over the roads, directly again into the channel, and will come out again. So in the next slide, I have an example of a stream where there is no impervious areas in the margins. So there is infiltration, and when the water comes out, it comes out slowly and doesn't cause any damage. On the next slide, I have an example of a channel that was artificialized and where we see buildings and cars immediately after the banks. So when something like on the right image happens, when there is a lot of precipitation, the water comes out and immediately causes damages in all the constructed areas and all the goods that people have. And this spread of contaminated water and even vectors of diseases that are in the water can be a risk for human health, for sure. Below, we have an example in the next slide of the service of bank stabilization. So when we have margins that are vegetated, the ones on the right, this was after a revegetation, so a process of restoration of this river. We have more stabilization of the banks, and the fine sediments are not dragged into the water. And this is a very important thing, because when disasters happen, they are usually because of bank destabilization from high flows. And this can cause the fall of bridges, of houses, and many human losses. So removing the vegetation from the margins constitutes by itself also a big risk for human health and the health of other animals, for sure. So in the next slide, I have another example of a service provided by healthy freshwater ecosystems, which is pollination. We also have flowers in the margins of the rivers and the streams naturally. And this is this service is essential to keep the plants diversity, to keep our crops to keep a good production of food for animals and for humans, and also a good nutritional value of the foods that are produced. So this is also important to the maintenance of human health and also animals' health. In the following slide, this is the more obvious thing. So the rivers and streams, they provide fish, but they also provide other plants that are used in the cooking in many dishes, for example, in soups, or also aromatic plants or therapeutic plants. These sometimes are ignored small plants, but they have an important value, and we can see them near small streams. In the next slide, I have now what we call cultural services. The therapeutic services are one of the types of cultural services, and these are essential for human health. You cannot see it from the PDF, but I had here the sound of water running. And also on the right, we could see an otter, which is a mammal that appears also in streams and rivers, for example, here in Coimbra. It's quite rare, but it provides what we say that's the observation of very interesting species. Is also something that can be therapeutic and interesting for people to learn about these species, but also just to relax by hear the sound of water, hear the sound of birds, or seeing charismatic animals. Then, as a next cultural service in the next slide, we have the service of environmental education. So we can use these streams to have classes, university classes, but also from primary schools, or even to other people in events that are organized with this purpose of taking people to the streams and see the biodiversity, but could also be historical constructions like water mills, for example. And this is very important services also for the cognitive development of people in cities, but also to give them to show them the importance of preserving nature and for future nature conservation. So on the other hand, in the next slide, if we have a degraded ecosystem, like examples of the examples in the image, we have an ecosystem where the margins were artificialized, or the water is polluted, or there are barriers or garbage. And this type of ecosystems, which we unfortunately often find in our cities, are then become a source of diseases, could be water or vector-borne diseases, and at the same time, a lack of well-being that affects people, but also animals and plants. Here we don't have an aesthetic value, and on the other hand, these ecosystems can become very unpleasant. We don't want to have them near our houses, and the tendency is to cover them and to make them disappear. These type of ecosystems can have then, as I said, the effect of making people in contact with vectors of diseases and also with pathogens that are in contaminated water. And this can cause a number of diseases to people, not only those that are maybe more well-known, like malaria or dengue, but also smaller but important things like gastroenteritis, for example. The lack of well-being is also things like the noise from a very intense urban area with a lot of traffic, or the air pollution or the water pollution, and the lack of natural areas will also cause problems on the people's well-being, and not, at the same time we are not having the important services that the nature was before providing. On the top of that, the climate changes can make this situation worse because, for example, we'll have less water in summer because there will be less precipitation in summer. We'll have hotter days in summer in temperate areas. So we'll have more stagnant water, for example. And on the other hand, the scenarios of climate change tell us that we'll have more events of extreme precipitation in winter. So this will cause more floods if the ecosystems are not healthy and are artificialized. So last slide of this part. So I would like to show you here an image of the city of Coimbra, where we have the main river. And then we have all these small blue lines, which are small streams that run into the main river. This is often unknown. People don't know this map and don't know these streams. But in fact, this is the closest nature and fresh water that we have near our homes. So that it's the nature that people in the cities can use if they are aware of them and if they are preserved. Unfortunately, most of these streams are not being monitored, ecologically monitored, and are more degraded, very often more degraded than the main rivers that we see in our cities. So this finishes this part of my presentation.
Are there any questions, guys, for Maria for the first part of her presentation? If they're not such, of course, you can ask them also in the panel discussion at the very end of our presentation set, but let's move on with the next one. All right.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you what we have decided that we are going to do and test in our project regarding indicators that can be used to assess the One Health related to the freshwater ecosystems. So as Alex said, so the main aims of our project is this establishment of an environmental surveillance system, which is composed of several tools. And some of them are, or the first are the early warning indicators of environmental health degradation that can indicate risks for human health. The next slide. So here we see the typical ecological monitoring that is or should be done according to the European Water Framework Directive. And also that is done in other countries, for example, in US, very similar things. So the rivers are monitored regarding their water quality. And by this, we mean measuring the oxygen dissolved in the water, the pH, the nutrients. These are the most common indicators. And then we measure also, we are obliged nowadays to monitor the biological indicators such as the benthic macroinvertebrate communities, the fish communities, the plant communities, and the algae communities. And in addition, this is, a bit different from what is done in other countries outside Europe, but we also assess the quality of the hydromorphology. So the alterations in the banks, in the vegetation, in the substrate. However, and next slide, although this is a very important information regarding the quality of the ecosystem, it may not reflect also the organism's health. We may have a species or an individual that is there, so we count it in our index, but is not healthy. Maybe it will die, but maybe not. If it doesn't die, we count it as present, but it's unhealthy. So this assessment really doesn't show the importance of the ecosystem in the context of One Health. It's a part, but cannot be all. So it's important also to show which biodiversity is in our streams and rivers for decision makers, but also for the citizens, and promote and assess the ecosystem in an holistic way that promotes their restoration. So we went further from this approach, and in the next slide, we tried to select other types of indicators that can indicate something else, the health, more related aspects, more related to health of the ecosystem and the animals and the plants and the risks for human health. So we are studying vectors of diseases like the mosquitoes, but also ticks. We try to assess also the biological control. So for example, we are analyzing predators like some birds that can keep, for example, the number of mosquitoes lower, or the amphibians could do the same, or some fish, because they eat some potential vectors that are invertebrates, and some of the invertebrates, some mosquitoes, for example. And we study also the health of the birds by seeing which pathogens are, for example, in their feces, or we study other pathogens that are in the stones, in the biofilms. And we have also information on other types of species that are not covered under the Water Framework Directive, like the amphibians, or in this case, the birds too. In addition, we are studying the hypothesis of using satellite observations to complement the assessments of the ecological quality of the streams. And we are also focused on getting information from human physical and mental health, and try to correlate with these other indicators and see if there is an indication that, in fact, the degradation of these species, of these organisms and communities is causing an effect on human health. So in the next slide, one of the first things that we did was to think about these indicators and consider which could be realistic, so we can really measure them. We included some of the well-known indicators, the ones that I showed before, the ecological quality indicators. And we also tried to obtain and include in our analysis some historical information that is gathered already by environmental agencies, in websites, in research projects, that could be used in our analysis. And we try also to select some indicators that could be measured by citizens, contributing with new information besides the one that may be monitored by environmental agencies or even by research teams. So this part is included in, these indicators are included in the application that we are building. And that is intended to bring small but very useful information for data analysis, for research, in fact. Next. So altogether, we selected 22 indicators that we consider that describe the ecosystem health, and 7 indicators of biological health risks. For each of these indicators, we wrote a rationale. So why we select them, how they can contribute with information related to risks for human health, which is the methodology that we can use, how can we derive metrics. So we have a method for the assessment in the field, but then we need to convert it into an assessment. And then we selected some indices that we can apply to each of these indicators, and also sources of information. So are we only getting this information from the field? In some cases we are. Other data can come from the app that we are building, but other data is coming from also already existing databases. In the next slide. So this is a bit more on the description of these indicators. So in the biological quality, in the ecosystem health indicators, we have the biological quality indicators the invertebrates, the diatoms, the fish, macrophytes, but also the riparian vegetation and microbiomes from biofilms. And then we have some information on the hydromorphology of the streams and on water quality. And in the next slide, we have the biological health indicators, which are the diptera. So here we include the mosquitoes, but not only. And we analyze those that are invasive and exotic, but also the native ones. There are some diseases that come from these, these mosquito-like insects that are not really well studied, and we don't look at them. We are usually more focused on the invasive mosquitoes, which can be more dangerous, but there are many other diseases coming from diptera. We also assess the ticks and invasive species like invasive plants, invertebrates, or fish from our data. We assess the birds, the species composition, but also their physiological health, as I explained, and the alterations in microalgae, deformities that are caused by stressors. And we are also using the fish and amphibians. In next slide, I have an example of the rationale that so in more detail, for example, for the mosquitoes, what are we studying and why? For example, we say here that the order Diptera includes mosquitoes of the family Culicidae, and these are vectors of several diseases that affect humans. The Culex of West Nile virus, the Aedes virus chikungunya, and so on and so on. We use mosquito traps. We identify the Diptera under the stereo microscope. And we can also do the molecular diagnosis of the presence of pathogens in these mosquitoes. We are going to do that. We are in the process. And which metrics can we use? We can use the abundance, but we can also use the prevalence of the pathogenic virus and bacteria, and so on. Sources of information we are collecting, but there are also already other apps or surveillance programs that analyze part of these Diptera, mostly the mosquitoes. And we have these for all the indicators. In the next slide. So I have now some images to show you which are the protocols that we elaborated. So then we decided these indicators and we had to sample them. But we had to sample in common ways, in standardized ways, so that every team would do the same work in exactly the same way, and we could collect all the data that would be measured in the field in the same way. So we elaborated OneAquaHealth sampling protocols, where each team has to register all the data regarding water physicochemical characteristics, hydromorphology, riparian vegetation, habitats, and check if the sampling of each community or organisms is done. Next slide. Then we also had to decide where to go. So which streams we should go to sample. So we standardized also the selection of sites by creating some criteria and guidelines for each team in the 5 research sites in the 5 cities. And each team had to choose 20 sites, and these sites had to obey to some characteristics in terms of size, not being very big, because all the streams had to be comparable. Like here we put a width between 1.5 and 8 meters, for example. We have to select a stretch of 100 meters, etc. So there are certain rules to select the sites. And also in the next slide, each of the streams selected had to be assessed through these 6 variables by evaluating their urbanization level, the stream connectivity, riparian zone, morphologial condition, water pollution, and well, five variables. And then the last column is to insert any already existing information about the site. And for each variable, we classify them between 1, which means like near natural with no urbanization, for example, to 5, which is an highly urbanized area, or 1 with no barriers and 5 with strong and big barriers that prevent, for example, the fish to pass from one place to another, or the sediments or the water to freely flow. So we did this to all the streams. So we selected in the end 20 streams for each of the 5 cities, so 100 sites. And in the next slide, so I show here the maps of the 5 cities, where the 5 cities location, and the maps, the points are the 20 sites in each city. In the next slide, you can see I have some images of some of the urban streams chosen in all the cities. So quickly they look very similar because they obey two common characteristics, but they are not similar in terms of landscape. But they all cover an urbanization gradient. So we have in each city from highly urbanized areas to areas more in the outskirts with less urbanization and more natural streams. And in the next slide, you can see some of the work that was done, very intensive work that was done in these 100 sampling sites between 2023 and 2024 for all these organisms. And lastly, we already did this field work, but now we are doing data analysis and some modeling to decide from all these indicators which will be the best ones, which are the best ones responding to the pressures of urbanization, which are the ones that are better able to predict risks for One Health, and which ones are feasible in terms of regular monitoring, because we want the decision makers to use this system and to be convinced. So the indicators must be also feasible. So in the end, the conclusion of our analysis will appear in the form of a decision support system, where the decision makers will see our protocols. They will know what they should measure, what they should assess in the streams, and according to the results, they will be able to find solutions following our decision support system. If this happens, if our system is impaired in a certain way, the risks are X, and you should do Y in order to prevent them. So you should improve the stream in this aspect or that, to improve the quality of the ecosystem and prevent the risks for One Health. Altogether, this will be part of our environmental surveillance system, which will be available through the hub so OneAquaHealth website or hub. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Maria, for the really comprehensive, interesting presentation, providing information on all these efforts put so far by the consortium. Are there any questions, guys, for Maria? If there are not such, I would like to suggest that we move on with our very first presentation by our dear colleagues from Benevento. Luigi, would you like to jump in and present? I can switch the slides for you. Next slide, okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maria Pia Pasolini, and I'm going to talk about what we did during the first 2 years in Benevento. I'm a vet at veterinary clinics and a researcher at the Veterinary Medicine University of Naples. Benevento is in the Campania region. Can you pass to the next slide, please? And when you think about Campania region, probably you imagine Naples, Sorrento, Capri. So they are very sunny towns, seaside towns, very hot, touristic. But Benevento is very different. Benevento is a small town at the foot of the Apennine Mountains, and with a very windy weather. The name Benevento has a particular meaning, that is well or good wind. But the first name of this town was Male Ventum, and the meaning is bad wind. But the Romans changed the names in the past after winning an important battle against some knights that were the people that were the original inhabitants of the area. Benevento is a very small historic town, and it is situated at 135 meters above the sea level, and has a small population of 55,000 more or less inhabitants, with a low density. The population has a density of more or less 425 inhabitants for square kilometers. Imagine that Naples has a density of 7,700 inhabitants for square kilometers. For selecting the sampling sites, we consider the towns that is a very small historical center, and there are a lot of contrade or districts around the city where there are houses, a few houses and small farms. And you can go to the next slide, please. In the area of Benevento, there are 16 water courses. The next, please. The next slide, please. In the historical center that you can see at the center of the maps, there are two rivers. The two rivers are the Calore, that is the main river, and the Sabato, that is a tributary of the Calore. But there are a lot of streams, the next please, and these other streams flow in the contrade, and the level of urbanizations is very different in the different contrade. So when we selected this site, we consider to use a different level of urbanization following the guidelines of the project. In the next slide, please. During the 2023 sampling campaign, we characterized these sampling sites, and we completed the forms of the project about each of these sites. So we characterized the environment, and we gave the level of urbanization, the level of stream connectivity, of water pollution, as Maria said previously. And we characterize the water samples, measuring and describing the physical parameters for each site, the nutrients, the pharmaceuticals, the biofilms, the diatoms. You can see in the pictures that the sites are very different from each other. Go to the next, please. In this picture, you can observe some sites where the nature is very wild and the urbanization is very low. The water is clear, but in other sites that you can observe in this picture, the situation is very different, with houses around the sites, and with a very heavily pollution of the water. Other sites, the next please, as an intermediated condition and situation between the first and the fifth level of urbanizations. The next, please. For each site, following the guidelines of the project, we described the level of urbanization, the stream connectivity, the riparian zone, the morphological condition, and water pollution. But the next. And the next again. During the 2024 sampling campaign, we can collect biodiversity samples to evaluate the biodiversity. And we had to wait for the ethical clearance to begin this phase of the project, because we have to follow the guidelines and the procedures described in the project, but also we have to respect the clearance, the ethical clearance and the licenses that we obtain from the university. So the fishes were collected with electrofishing, whereas amphibian were captured, sampled, and then alive, and then released in the sampling site. Macroinvertebrates and insects, the next please, were collected with the net, with the filters, and we used for mosquitoes the trap that is described in the project, the biogen mosquito trap that is described in the procedure of the project. The next, for birds, only whereas for all the animals we can collect samples in each site, for birds we can collect some samples in few sites, specifically capturing some birds, sampling it and releasing it in the sites. Whereas in each site we can record the songs and the sounds of the birds to characterize the features of the birds' population in each site. I thank you for your attention and give the floor to Professor Tambouris to discuss the relationship with the stakeholders during the first 2 years of the project.
Okay, thank you, Maria Pia. Hope you can listen to me clearly because I a little bit of a sore throat. So I'll try to be as fast as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, from June 2023 to March 2024, 3 main rounds of workshops with local alliances were run. There were very important moments in order for the local alliances to know about the project, and in order for the project to know about, of course, the reality of Benevento specifically. And there have been a raising and ever increasing involvement of these subjects in the project, and in fact now we are on the verge on organizing, according to the schedule of the project, other important workshops in which we are going to put into practice the newest solutions, the newest findings that we have been come up with in the project. And you can see, for example, in the last August, other appointments of data sampling and data gathering have been held just to testify that it's a continuous work that we are doing in order to make the project results to ever increase. Please, next slide. And coming to an end, it was very important for us to underscore that last November, a sort of a side activity of the project was run, and specifically a training school on pathogen detection was organized here in Naples, in the Department of Veterinary Medicine, and the research focused specifically on microbiomes to study the microbial communities and how environmental factors like temperature and pH affect them. And what's important to underscore that it was possible to learn about the MALDI-TOF. It is a technique that identifies microorganisms by analyzing proteins, offering a faster and simpler sample preparation. So the medical and veterinary settings were further underscored in order to verify once more the importance of the project in a One Health vision, where the human, the animal, and the environmental health are strictly intertwined with each other. So this kind of activity was an important moment to highlight once more the important results that we are running with the project. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. Are there any questions, guys? If not, let's move on with the next research site. That's Coimbra. The presentation will be done by our dear colleague Anna.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. So I will present the other research site, Coimbra. Next slide, please. So Coimbra is the major city of central Portugal, with about 140,000 inhabitants. So the city holds one of the oldest universities in the world, our university, Coimbra University. And its historical buildings were classified as World Heritage by UNESCO, which also attracts many students and boosts the tourism and local economy. Coimbra also has one of the most important hospitals in the country and is considered a top center for medical research and biotechnology. Next slide. So in terms of climate, the Coimbra region is influenced by a temperate Mediterranean climate that alternates between cold and rainy season with a hot and dry summer. As Maria already showed you, the city is crossed by the Mondego River, the main river, and by hundreds of small streams and their respective catchment areas that all drain into the main river Mondego. So within this area, we selected 20 of these small streams sampling sites that run in the city area. Next slide. So our sampling sites are located within a maximum range of 12 kilometers from the city center and present variations in hydromorphology. As also Maria said, they cover a gradient, they were selected to cover a gradient of urbanization with different surrounding population densities, and also gradient of previous soil density, as you can see here. And just to exemplify, next slide, please. Here you can see two of our sampling sites that have low urbanization in terms of soil imperviousness and also population density. And next slide. And here you can see other two sampling sites that have the higher urbanization degree in terms of imperviousness. Next slide. I will just show you some more examples of our research sites where you can see different hydromorphology characteristics in terms of bank vegetation, flow type, artificial structures. Next slide, please. It continues with more examples of other research sites in terms of land use, you can see. And in this, within this set of selected streams, we apply the methodology already presented to collect all the biotic and abiotic data. You can see in the next slide some of this biologic collection. And that's it.
Great, Anna. Thank you very much for the presentation. If there are no questions, let's move on with the next research site, and that's Ghent.
Yeah, hello. So my name is Long. So I'd like to present to you an overview of our research sites and our data collection efforts in and around Ghent as a part of the OneAquaHealth projects. Next slide, please. So here highlighted on this map is the city of Ghent is located in the northwest of Brussels. It's one of the biggest cities in Belgium. Next slide will show you some historical and geographical context. So Ghent originated as a settlement at a confluence between Scheldt River and Leer rivers, and there's many artificial canals was constructed around Ghent, and during the Middle Ages, Ghent was an important marine port during its connections to by this canal, and today it's also a home of the North Sea port, one of the important port in Europe, that spanning over 60 kilometers across Belgium and the Netherlands. The next slide, please. And Ghent is also home of a lot of technologies. Park, here's an example. We have a TechLane Ghent Science Park. It's a hub of international corporates, R&D centers, research institutes, and high-tech enterprises. Beside being urbanized, Ghent is the waterways from Ghent is also influenced by industrial sectors. Next slide, please. So in total, we collected out of samples at 22 sites. These sites were selected to represent different levels of urbanizations and also different water quality and ecological conditions. Next slide, please. So as you can see here is the one of the few sites in our study relatively undisturbed compared to others. These areas serves as an important reference size for assessing the human impacts on aquatic ecosystems. And in the next slide, you can see more polluted streams, still with natural surroundings. You can see that in these sites, they still surrounded with a lot of trees, forest patches, but the water quality is extremely poor. The reason is because of the upstream waste from industrial areas, but also the households that leads to contaminations to these sites. And in the next slide, you can see also prevalent artificial banks that and habitat alternations in these rivers. Concrete banks replace natural shorelines, and these modifications really having a big impact on the habitats for aquatic organisms and also the ecological conditions. In the next slides, there's sites that is highly urbanized. So you can see on the right photo the size in this size, the riverbeds actually was like partly was concrete. So there's a lot of modifications in this size. In the next slides, there's also some moderately urbanized streams. So you see that in these sites, they also building some weirs or small dams. So before these years, we have a really big volumes of water, the increase in water depths and decrease in water velocities. So this kind of alternations, changes in water in hydrologies and morphologies of the rivers also affects the ecological conditions. Next slide, please. So in total, we collect different. Again, here is also some sites that also be affected by urbanizations. In these sites, often during summer we have our bloom when there's a lot of nutrients inputs into the waters, and this create a lot of problems, not just for the ecological conditions, but also for the public health. So there's a lot of reports of how dogs or animals are getting sick because they drink this water. Next slide, please. Again, here is some site that is being urbanized. That you can see that the next to the banks, that is the houses. We still have some animals living. Most of them are ducks and some kind of fish. But yeah, there's the very low biodiversity in these sites. Next slide, please. So in these sites, we collected a variety of data, including biotic and biotic data. So mosquitoes, invertebrates samples. We also collecting. We were also collecting bird increments and also other biotic variables like water qualities, nutrients concentration, organic concentration. These data will help us to access the biodiversity and also ecosystem health. And besides these data collections, we also doing some workshops and joining some meeting with the local stakeholders. In the next slides, you can see our workshop with local alliance, but also we actively joining meetings with decision makers in these areas to promote the sustainable water management practice and also introduce our projects. So that's all about our case.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Hong, guys? If there are such, let's move on with the next presentation, which will be done by Anne from the University of Oslo.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander, and thank you for inviting us. I will share a little bit about the work that we're doing in as a research site in Oslo. Can I have the next slide? So we are collaborating with members of the local alliance in Oslo, but let me first start by sharing with you that we have been looking at, Oslo has 10 rivers that goes from the forest to the fjord, as you can see here, and we have selected 3 areas to illustrate variation in use in terms of the urban areas from the forest up in the hill and to the fjord. And we have also strategically selected them for a couple of other things. First of all, because of the opportunities to explore use of these blue and green freshwater areas and to focus in on different age groups from a public health perspective. And because in Oslo, between east and west of the city, there is a socioeconomic divide, and the previous gap in life expectancy used to be 10 years people tended to be 10 years older in the west than in the east. It had a lot to do with the living conditions and also the quality of the urban area. So we selected those. We are in the east, around, I don't know if you can see, Jansarva, where we will also collaborate with the schools and look at the open air classroom, where interacting with youth, understanding the value of blue and green spaces and the opportunity for play and thrive and using the areas. In the mid, we are specifically looking at a reopened stream, Bjerkdalen Miljøpark, where also they have done a lot in terms of making these areas accessible for all. And in the west, look at age contributions to age-friendly environments, physical and mental activities. So we are collaborating with Oslo River Forum, which is a peer group and a community that is devoted to preserve and expand use of the blue and green freshwater ecosystems. And they have members that are like friends of the rivers. We are particularly working with 2 of these groups, and we're also working with the suburbs or the sections within the municipality to look at age-friendly activities and a lot of prevention. We've done some initial findings from a public health perspective that relates to access and use, to care for the areas, making sure that it's pleasant, safe for all, that there is an opportunity for social and physical activity and thrive, and to also look at conditions for increased use where natural resting places and facilities along the trails are important. Can I have the next slide? So this is some of the areas and what it can look like here at some of our research sites. As you know, we are the most northern research site, and we're also contributing to some of the diversity between north and south, east and west in Europe. Here we can see some of the reopened streams. We can see how the waterways are in rather authentic and original conditions. And the interesting part is that the pictures that we look at in the middle here is actually quite close to the fjord. So it doesn't have, it's not that it is, there is a different degree of urbanization and a different degree of housing, but it can also vary. A nice thing is that there is also, for the people that are using the areas for transport or recreation or activity, there is also prepared information plaques that can share some of the things that has been and is. And I have some pictures of, one picture of the winter. We have right now embarking on spring, so it's not snow anymore, but it is quite still we're waiting for the birds, etc., etc. So and also you can see some of the species that we have found in the rivers. Can I have the next slide? Yeah, and one of the things that we will continue to do is to work with the people that are using the areas, the different age groups, and also benefit from some of the resources that our partner, Oslo Elve Forum and the Friends of the Rivers has prepared. And we look forward to adding some of the sites also from the citizen science perspective and have people make observations of what they see and what they use the areas around the rivers. And some of them are quite urban. Some of them are also considered as as wilderness, and it is in the middle of the city. And we can also bring in some of the more cultural historical areas. So this is a good collaborating partner to move forward the agenda on the public health and the public health indicators. Can I have the last slide? And also we have 20 research sites and collections. Some of them will also be the sites for the public health activities, but here you can see some of the work that was done to characterize this blue-green urban aquatic ecosystems with the mosquito traps, what's in the river, what's on the river banks. And we will use this information also to create awareness for prevention as we see more tick-borne illnesses or risk of tick-borne illness, and then knowing where the ticks are and how you can prevent from getting sick, and of course also other things. But this is a little bit of a snapshot from the research site in Oslo. Going forward, we will pick up the activity and we will have workshops with the Friends of the Rivers and with the schools to understand also how they use the areas, what it means from a thrive, physical activity, prevention, public health perspective, and how we build capacity to make sure that we're also taking good care of this treasure, because it is really a treasure in the middle of the city. So that's from my side, and thank you.
Thank you, Arne, for a really nice presentation. So let's move on with our very last presentation, which will be done by our dear colleague Dirk from Toulouse.
Yeah, good day, everyone. The tea comes at the end of the sites. So go to the next slide, please. So our sites are distributed more or less in the south of the Toulouse metropolitan area. So it's not Toulouse as a city, which would only be the smaller part in the center of this map, but it's actually going a little bit further. In this total metropolitan area, there are 1.4 million people living at the moment. Next slide, please. The metropolitan area is actually quite interesting. You see on that picture that the city of Toulouse is where you see all the roofs. And the rest is actually already more or less outside of the real city. But Toulouse is a major economy hub. It makes Occitanie one of the richer regions in France, particularly because there's Airbus headquarters, but there are also many aeronautics and space and defense industries which are located in and around Toulouse. We also have 130 to 140,000 students in Toulouse, which is of course a quite impressive number, and this is because we have several universities and higher education institutions. The climate is somewhere in between Benevento and Coimbra. It's maybe a little milder, but in general, we have very hot summers and, well, less cool winters by now. Something which is comparable. So with Coimbra, Toulouse, and Benevento, we have also an east to west gradient in the project. Next slide, please. So I will not go into any details. Everyone else has already explained what we do. these are the different sites we have here in Coimbra, in Toulouse, and many of them are, as also Maria said, water evacuation streams, meaning they have been there naturally. Some of them have been a little bit altered afterwards to manage all the incoming water from constructed lands and from agricultural lands. Next slide, please. They are very diverse. So on the left one, there is a stream there. It's just standing on the bridge, but you see there's a stream going along that building, and we have tried to find many different sites following all the different criteria. Some of them are in parks, some of them are close to habitations, some of them are really natural sites which have been preserved for quite a long time. Next slide. There is also some interest in the project there. We have done 3 different workshops so far. The engagement is there. The people see that it's interesting to have a look at these sites, and that good water quality in those sites is also important for them and their pets. And they are very eager to learn what we will learn at the end of OneAquaHealth. Next slide, please. It's not officially in the project, but it's another site. It's Taichung in Taiwan, where it's the same size than the metropolitan area of Toulouse, but it's much smaller and way more dense. And it's in an Asian country where many of our mosquitoes come from, and other invasive species. So it was interesting to have a look there. Next slide, please. And to see how this, what we see here and the photos, compares of what we have in Europe, and to see how this compares, because it's also a warm subtropical climate, so to some extent comparable with what we can find in southern parts, Mediterranean parts of Europe. Next slide, please. The sites can be very diverse. You see very artificial sites with quite a few fish in there, but then also less artificial sites where we can also find turtles and a lot of different butterflies and so on. Next slide. But what you can also see is a lot of pollution. There are rice fields close by, so some of them are used for irrigation. And you find a lot of plastic pollution in many of these sites. I will not go into details, but we have not done the full protocol of OneAquaHealth in those sites, but we have concentrated ourselves on biofilms, water, and mosquitoes, which should give us quite a lot of idea about the water quality as much as pathogens and parasites which are available. I think that was it, no? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dirk, for the short, concise, but informative presentation. All right, so if there are no questions, I would suggest we move on with the very first presentation from our external presenters. So please, guys, feel free to ask questions to those 3 professionals. So, Cosmina, please feel free to jump in and present.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cosmina Stalidi, and I'm a research and development engineer at Bea Consult International, an innovative SME based in Romania, Austria, and Belgium. And today I'm honored to present Mobilize, a sustainable One Health mobile laboratory for rapid response to infectious diseases outbreaks. And today, in the following moments, I will walk you through the core aspects of Mobilize, its objectives, challenges, and the innovation it brings to the One Health approach. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, Mobilize at a glance. Mobilize is an initiative aimed at developing a novel and sustainable One Health mobile laboratory unit. The project is designed to tackle emerging infectious disease outbreaks efficiently while ensuring environmental sustainability. Our approach focuses on 4 key components, and these are the following: developing the mobile laboratory unit, creating a mobilized emergency operating center and decision support system, creating a European mobile laboratory inventory database, and the last one will be represented by validating the mobilized prototype in the real-world scenarios. Together, these elements will enable a more coordinated, efficient, and sustainable response to infectious disease threats. Regarding the key challenges, I put there on the slides some of them. Despite advancements in mobile laboratories, significant gaps remain in infectious disease response. The Mobilize project seeks to address these challenges, which include lack of One Health mobile lab, poor interoperability between mobile laboratories, and lack of green laboratory operations. By tackling these issues, Mobilize aims to create a mobile lab that is not only highly functional, but also environmentally sustainable and fully integrated with One Health principles. Next slide, please. Regarding the EU Horizon Project Mobilize, Mobilize is a 36-month project launched on 1st of October 2022. On European Union Horizon project. It is led by our colleagues from Hamburg, Benevento Institute, with participation from several key partners across Europe and Africa. Here we have our colleagues from AGES, from Austria, from Greece, EXUS and the national NPHO. From Romania, we have BEA and Red Cross. And from East Africa, we have our colleagues from Benevento in Tanzania. In this project, we have also field missions in order to validate our mobile lab. The field mission will be held in Austria, in Greece, in Romania, and in Tanzania. And these field missions will validate the mobilized prototype, ensuring it meets real-world demands for outbreak response. Next slide, please. Now we'll discuss a little bit on the One Health design. One Health is at the core of the mobilized laboratory design. To ensure safe and effective operations, the lab incorporates a dedicated workstation for animal sample processing, an isolation tent, a portclave system, and a separate relaxation area, ensuring lab personnel can take necessary breaks without compromising biosecurity. And by integrating these elements, Mobilize enables seamless coordination between human, animal, and environmental health sectors in outbreak response. Next slide, please. Regarding the green design, sustainability is a critical component of our lab. To minimize environmental impact, the lab is powered by a hybrid renewable energy system consisting of some solar power, wind power, a battery system serving as an power supply, a standby generator for emergency backup, and this setup ensures a constant power supply, making the lab energy efficient, mobile, and fully operational even in off-grid locations. With these features, Mobilize is a pioneering model for sustainable infectious diseases response laboratories worldwide. Next slide, please. In the slide, as you can see, I want to launch an invitation to invite you in our open innovation workshop and fundraising session on May. This event is co-organized by our Horizon Project Shift Hub. This event is a unique opportunity to connect with industry leaders, innovators, and visionaries shaping the future of healthcare and technology. And it would be a pleasure to be a part of this event. I will leave in the chat the link in order to register. And we are waiting you online and also in Bucharest. Next slide, please. And this was my presentation. Thank you so much for attention. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. And here you have my details, my information, my email address. So I'll be really happy to connect with you. Thank you so much.
Great, Kuzmin, and thank you very much for the interesting presentation. Also, this mobile app that you're planning to develop looks really futuristic. So, guys, if you, I would suggest you remain your questions for the very last panel discussion session. So let's move on with the next presentation, which will be done by the Water Institute and Ms. Catherine Sweet-Ketting.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Keating, and I'm a social scientist at the Community Resilience Center at the Water Institute, and I'm based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today, and I am going to share an overview of the Water Institute's work and tell you a bit about my work at the Community Resilience Center at the Water Institute. So we're an independent, nonprofit applied research organization founded in 2011 in the aftermath of some devastating hurricanes and oil spills in the US Gulf Coast. And since then, the Water Institute has become a hub of innovation and collaboration, providing the best available science, technology, and decision-making to support people, ecosystems, and economies in Louisiana, the Gulf Coast region, and beyond. We have offices here in Baton Rouge, where I'm based, in New Orleans, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And as a social scientist at the Water Institute, I'm part of a transdisciplinary team of scientists, engineers, planners, and thought partners. My background is in sociology and social work. We collaborate across diverse sectors, including government, private industry, academia, and nonprofit organizations. Next slide. We're working to advance actionable research, technology, and planning for inclusive, science-informed decision-making. And we draw on our roots in the Mississippi River Delta and Gulf Coast, where water is both a strength and a vulnerability to tackle challenges wherever they are. And we approach this work through science to solve complex societal challenges, standards to identify and advance systems, and solutions, innovative solution-driven tools. Next slide. This slide just shows the different research areas that we work in at the Water Institute. This diverse team of researchers works to better understand the natural and human aspects of coastal, riverine, and urban water management, and to develop methods, models, and tools that can be used to restore ecosystems and to reduce risk for habitats, people, and infrastructure. This work thrives on transdisciplinary collaboration, both internally between subject matter experts and externally with our partners, stakeholders, and the communities that we work with. And next, I'm going to talk a bit about some of the direct work that we do to support resilient communities. Next slide. So coastal communities in the Gulf face complex environmental challenges. And the Institute's Community Resilience Center, where much of my work is focused, partners with stakeholders and local communities through a variety of different projects that enhance and expand holistic community resilience in the region. And right now we're focused on advancing research and practice in 4 key areas that were identified through a collaborative process, conversations with partners and stakeholders. We're looking at fundamentals for equitable climate resilience, insurance, affordability, and availability, community-led migration, legal frameworks and approaches, and equitable flood risk planning and policy. And I'm just going to briefly highlight 2 projects that we're working on around insurance, affordability, and availability, and fundamentals for equitable climate resilience. Next slide. So first, insurance affordability and availability. This is a project that is ongoing in Gravelines Bay, Alabama. We are looking at the connections between investments in ecosystem restoration and the use of natural and nature-based features to reduce flood risk and insurance prices. So Gravelines Bay is located on Dauphin Island. That's a barrier island off the coast of Alabama. And recently, marsh restoration efforts have been implemented in this area. So this photo shows the marsh restoration site in the bay. You can see where some of the marsh restoration has been placed in the Bay Area, and the marsh has been expanded from 37 acres to around 100 acres. And so this type of restoration should reduce flood risk, and we are trying to assess how to translate restoration to more affordable insurance options for people who live on the island. Next slide. So what we're doing with this project is we're working to capture the benefits in flood risk reduction and potential insurance savings. And we're working with an engineering team, a reinsurer, and the residents of the island directly. And we're also working to support the residents in sharing this information with their insurers and potentially the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Next slide. Another project that I wanted to share kind of gets at the fundamentals for equitable climate resilience. So addressing gaps in capacity and knowledge is fundamental to fostering effective community-led resilience planning and action. And this project, which we've recently launched, and you can see a little bit more about it here on our website if you scan the QR code, is called the Community Resilience Catalyst. And we are working with community partners to provide education and technical support to jumpstart the next phase of their resilience work. And we're looking at community resilience from a holistic perspective. So this type of technical support can look like so many things: planning efforts, expanding disaster response and resilience, water quality testing, soil testing, providing solar microgrids and backup batteries, conducting assessments to advance retrofitting or construction, establishing community gardens, and establishing heat action plans. I'd be happy to discuss this work with you more to identify opportunities for collaboration and synergy. My contact info is on the next slide. So thank you again for the opportunity to join the conversation and to share a little bit about the work that we're doing at the Water Institute. The QR code here goes to a digital business card that has my contact info, and please do not hesitate to reach out. I look forward to further discussion. Thanks.
Great, Catherine. Thank you very much for the really nice presentation. We'll be more than happy to set up some bilateral calls and to discuss how we can collaborate within the framework of the projects that you mentioned. It will be really great. All right, so let's move on with our last presentation, last but not least, done by Karina from KPMG Romania. Karina, please feel free to take over.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I think the presentations so far were very content-rich and offered me different angles on sustainability projects compared to my day-to-day work. And I hope I could offer you the same, a different perspective, so that you can leverage the work that you are doing so passionately in sustainability. And let's please move. Just to start with my presentation, I am an associate partner in KPMG Romania, leading the team of energy and sustainability and climate change. And in a nutshell, these are the services that we are covering in sustainability across a diverse sector range, specifically for corporate clients and for banks. And we are covering ESG strategy and sustainability reporting, carbon footprint calculation, decarbonization strategy, waste traceability, circular economy initiatives, due diligence, and impact studies and and benchmarks. And moving to the next slide, we can see that we are part from a very broad network of professionals, more than 500 dispersed across the globe. And for very large projects, we collaborate together very well on, let's say, niche topics on sustainability. One of the many interesting projects that we are currently working is a decarbonization strategy for a large natural gas producer. They would like to invest in different low carbon pathways, such as renewables, green hydrogen, and biomethane, and also carbon capture and storage, which is a very controversial aspect because we can see which is the impact on biodiversity, the risks of communities that could be impacted, and also the risks in connection with earthquakes. So this is a very challenging project, but very interesting at the same time, whether to balance the carbon capture with all the other perspectives of the risks that such an investment embeds. And moving on the next slide, this is mainly our playing field. Mainly in our team, in KPMG Romania sustainability team, we are basically working around this regulatory framework that is emitted by the European Green Deal. And we see here the intersection of three very well intertwined pieces of regulations that are making, that are generating the effect that the investments in decarbonization and the care for the environment, being it soil, water, air, or biodiversity, happens. So that we have an imposition on one hand for the corporates to report in accordance with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And this could be from practice a huge burden on one hand, but on the other hand, it generates discipline among the management of the corporate clients and defines a clear and uniform pathway of reporting. On the other side, we have the Sustainability Finance Disclosure Regulation that is imposed on banks in order to set their strategy and to invest in environmental assets that are sustainable. And there is also the EU taxonomy that links the two, so that it creates a dictionary between the impositions on the corporate clients and also on the banks. In that sense, the clients would have the incentive to invest in their sustainability strategy and also to employ projects, actions, and report consistently in order to get the financing that they are looking for. So, as I said, these pieces of regulations are very well intertwined and are creating the ecosystem of reporting projects in sustainability and also investing and getting the funds for this kind of investments. If we are looking forward to the next slide, we can make a bridge and make a comparison with what happens at the level of municipalities and cities, and we can see a disconnect, meaning that there is a lot of regulation imposed on companies, while on the municipalities that also form a significant part of all what pollutes the cities, the regulation is not that uniform. And also, this gives rise to a lack of information, and we cannot close the circle of these emissions. And the discussion is very ample because it could be devised, in my perspective, very much linked and correlated with what happened and all the studies and research and development that were provided at the level of the companies. And similarly, the value chain has to be analyzed and see along the way, similar to what you have described today, what are the main themes, what are the tipping points, what are the material themes that are impacting each and every city and its particularities. And then the ecosystem has to be linked with the policies and regulations and what the funding sources are that the municipalities can attract. But for this, again, data has to be collected and reported on. And then it's also the technology, the investments, the low carbon pathways that are planned to be invested in, the wider ESG consideration in terms of course, making a just transition and in a way taking care also of the workforce and how it is deployed along the way, and the levers that can be employed, such as technology to monitor and data that is scattered across cities and large cities and municipalities, and also the financing available and all the research and development that should be an input, very important for deriving these regulations. Metrics and targets. There are metrics and targets disparated and scattered across what municipalities are reported, but in a way, from my experience and also from the experience of the corporate clients, sometimes they are not realistic in the way that they have been designed simply as a strategy, but then when you can go to implementation, you can see that there is a huge difference between what was strategized and what can be implemented. And also they are ambitious targets like reaching net zero and having this or that impact, but they are not correlating with the necessary funds. And I have a simple example of a client that declared that he aims to be net zero in 2050, but then the investment to reach that level is 5 billion euros. And this was for sure not quantified at the level of the declaration. And similar to the municipalities, there are a lot of targets and plans, but how well documented and integrated with the ecosystems are they? Going forward to the next slide, we can see a simple example of monitoring but at the city level, and we can decide, let's say, that not each and every city should be monitored and reported on, but similar to the companies at the corporate level, a certain threshold could be determined so that we first tackle the most important municipalities. And we can set, and I've seen that you have already put upfront several indicators that you are thinking to monitor in order to derive and to document better the impacts of the cities on several layers, soil, water, air, biodiversity, and also the dependencies, how the city has to be sustained in order to further develop, but it cannot because of these impacts. And in my opinion, much of this kind of research and development should be fueled in all kind of rounds of discussions and all kind of regulation, because we can see somehow also the downside of the corporate sustainability reporting directive, that probably it was not well documented and fueled in by real life examples and by real effort on monitoring, so that you just draw the essential out of all the exercising of monitoring, and then you just come up with the relevant pieces and what really matters, rather than reporting on so many aspects. And probably I've mentioned reporting so many times, and I think for you, as I've seen your presentation, could be boring. But this reporting aspect is important when the banks would analyze and would see if they can provide financing for these projects, because they need the data, they need to see the impact of a certain project. And for this, they need to have also a comparison, a benchmark across what has been done in different parts of Europe. Going further, next slide, please. I'm just, I know that this is a very crowded slide, and intentionally I've put it here because it really gives an overview of the burden of reporting in a way. So the Corporate Social Responsibility Reporting Framework has this standard on water and marine resources, And many companies find it difficult to report, but as I said, in a way, it provides a standard structure. And if some simplistic ideas could be taken from here, it's the fact that you have to describe your strategy, your policies, your actions, your targets, your metrics, what you monitor, what is essential for you, so that you can create comparable information with other cities around the globe, and in terms of CSRD with other companies. Because one of the aims of this reporting directive is to be able to provide a very easy to follow benchmark exercise, because all the data points, as you probably all know, are gathered at corporate level and are read, and then they can be just very easily included in benchmarks on sectors and on companies in different countries, so that you just can have an overview on the data that are gathered. And then for sure, standing on such a large amount of data, you can draw conclusion and decide what has to be financed, where the focus shall be put on. Going forward, if it is to draw a conclusion, I think this would be like your work is so valuable in driving the changes and fueling the necessary data and input for larger, broader regulations, and a way that these projects that you are doing can be leveraged and investments can be attracted into them. So I can see a bit in the future, in 5 years' time, I would like to see that also the circle is closed for the municipalities, similar to the companies, and then we can see a full spectrum of data gathered at the level of large cities in order to draw very impactful changes and support this by the appropriate funds, being them public or banks or state aids. But in my view, only this holistic and overarching view could be supporting these significant changes. So that would be it from my side. I also included my contacts on the last slide, and I'm just really eager to connect with you and discuss more.
Great, Corina. Thank you very much for the really valuable presentation and inputs connected to your slides. All right, guys, I would like to open now the floor for any questions aimed at our external presenters. It will be really nice to hear also some other participants from the audience.
Right, to get the ball rolling, first of all, I would like to really thank the 3 external speakers for an excellent job and sticking within the time frame we had mutually discussed. Thank you, well done. Not only your presentations were excellent, you have stuck within the time frame, which is great. Maybe I'll start with a softball question for Cosmina. Since your project Mobilize is ending December of 2025, so later this year, and OneAquaHealth ends December of 26, do you see, and I presume your event coming up in May has to do in some ways of what comes after your project ends. And then in that light, do you see any collaboration which you can take from our work, our findings, and jointly continue in the future? So you don't have to give any specific answers, but I thought I'll see whether you have some response to that.
Thank you so much for your question and for this opportunity. Maybe we can discuss, and maybe you can be one of the presenters in our event in May. I would be really happy to see anybody from this meeting there in May. Maybe in Bucharest or in online. And of course, we can collaborate. We can maybe arrange a webinar, like a synergy between our projects. And I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion, Maria. Maria, you had a question, please. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you all for being here. First, I didn't say that, and it was very interesting to hear all your presentations. I have a question regarding the project Mobilize too, so that's why I raised my hand now. I was curious to know, well, first if these mobile, I don't know, caravan, it looks more like a caravan, already exists, and which parameters are you analyzing? Which, yes, what are you analyzing or intend to analyze if it's not implemented already?
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, I will leave you in the chat the video. You can see our functional mobile lab. 1 minute to show you. And regarding the parameters we analyzed, for example, Bea was in charge to collect the data. Regarding we worked with a lot of parameters relevant for example, for Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, from COVID, from different let's say diseases.
But from the environment, so it's environmental samples or
yeah, from
human?
humans, environment, birds. We, let's say, covered everything.
Mm-hmm. So you go to a certain city and then sample there. That's the idea, or
not really. We try to collect data from in general from the countries involved in the project. I mean, Austria, Greece, Romania, and Germany, and of course Africa, Tanzania. And but our efforts were made to collect the data from the entire Europe, from entire Africa. We had a lot of.
But the idea is to collect samples and analyze them, like water samples, for example, from the birds. What would be? Do you have an example of which type of samples you collect?
Here maybe this is a good question for my colleagues from
Maybe not.
Yeah, but they gave, for example, the background, the motivation of this of elaborating this project was that to how to say, to keep the quality of the samples, animal samples or vegetal samples or even human samples, in order to make to prepare the analysis at the moment, the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I will show you the mobile. We have a video on YouTube, 1 minute, and I will put the link in the chat.
Great. So while you're putting the link on the chat, thank you, Cosmina, for that. I really appreciate you being here and helping us to get to know what you're doing and allowing us an opportunity to tell us about what we are doing with your project and maybe look for future collaboration as you go along.
Sure.
And again, thank you for putting that link on the chat. I'll move on to Catherine. Thank you very much for a very fantastic presentation and giving us a sense of the kind of work you and your team is doing. And I did appreciate you putting at the end some of the potential collaboration. So that was really my question to you is the short-term and medium-term collaboration that we can jointly execute in the next 18 months. The reason I say next 18 months is because our project is ending December of 2026. So in that period, and it's not the question, even though I'm asking you, you can give some reaction, but maybe we can have more dialogues as Alex had earlier discussed to further, extract those answers. But what's your reaction to that, medium to short term?
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity to, join this conversation and to hear about all the work that's going on at the project sites and to share a bit about ours. One thing that comes to mind immediately is just hearing the connections between the different project site and the different natural features and ecosystem services and different facets of community well-being. I think there could be opportunity to collaborate, meet, maybe talk through lessons learned and share findings around some of the work that we're doing at the Community Resilience Center to better understand how social determinants of health, in particular environment, intersect with vulnerability and hazards and what it looks like here in the US Gulf Coast and in some of these project site locations. So we do have a couple of projects that are considering different facets of social determinants of health and looking at how they may impact hazard vulnerability, adaptation, and adaptive capacity.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Catherine. And for the rest of our project team members who are on the call, these questions I'm asking our speakers is really to set the stage for you all to ask questions. So while you're thinking, yes, go ahead.
I have one question, a question for Karina and maybe also for Catherine. In the context of the Green Deal, maybe Karina, you mentioned it during the presentation, but I believe it would be interesting to highlight these facts again. In the context of the Green Deal, which basically constitutes a strategy to make the EU's climate, energy, transportation, taxation, etc., fit for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030. What is the reason? What is the reason based on your research and knowledge exchange with the industry? So what is the reason for the lack of implementation of the given sustainability standards by the industry organizations? Is it lack of information of their actual capabilities to implement these standards or lack of connection between them and the policymakers? It would be also for us as, let's say, Europeans to know if Catherine has observed similar challenges faced by the industry organizations in the United States, and if some of these possible issues, which I briefly mentioned, are really facts, what would be the possible solution?
Yes, I will take over. I'm not sure. One second. I think I have a slight connection problem. Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes. So I went out for 2 minutes. I was disconnected. The reason why these large-scale strategies are not implemented, in my view, is due to the lack of preparation from day one. So these are very massive transformational projects that are shifting not only the sustainability strategy, but the business strategy. Some of the businesses will shift from the current modus operandi into something totally different. For instance, hard-to-abate sectors such as salmon producers and metallurgical producers would have to shift and invest in other portfolios, or may just invest significantly in, for instance, not burning gas in their production, but just investing in green hydrogen. These are very large investments and have to be planned accordingly. State aid support should be considered. Also, for instance, the electricity industry or the natural gas industries necessitates significant investments, and maybe the market and the entire value chain for these industries are not really prepared and interconnected in all the streams, like regulatory, getting finance, having the transportation networks up to speed, the distribution networks, and so on. And also for a simple company that is in the business of delivery, investing in transforming its fleet, it's also costly. So it's a lot of work to design where you would like to be in 10 years from all the perspectives, not only sustainability. Sustainability just is, in a way, the perfect, beautiful output of many other decisions along the way. But I think that's it. I mean, the regulation often come very fast, and people are not planning enough and are not considering the impacts at the early stage, and they are late adopters. And then everything is done in a rush. Some targets and objectives are proclaimed, but again, everything goes hand in hand with the money to implement these strategies and the investments needed. So that's a bit of a dance between the near-term resolutions and what can I do to have quick wins on my sustainability strategy, and what's really and heavily impactful on the company's businesses.
Great, thank you, Corina, for your. Catherine, do you have any insights from the United States regarding this topic?
Yeah, so I can speak a bit to this from my perspective, working in the Gulf region for about a decade with communities. So as you know, this part of the US does have a large energy economy. And so when we are working with partners and stakeholders to advance resilience for communities, including sustainability, we are seeking to build connections and to incorporate perspectives of community and allow for exchange of information and prioritizing projects and goals to advance forward. I will say, you know, at this time, we are navigating transition in terms of policy priorities in the US and regulations. And so the type of work that I do with the Community Resilience Center will continue to adapt and to listen to the communities that we work with and to understand what it is that is most important to them as they navigate the hazards that we experience here in the Gulf, and to continue to look for strategies to push this type of equitable climate resilience work forward, regardless of the transitions and changes that might happen.
Great, thank you very much for your answer. Any other questions, guys, for our presenters?
Yeah, I'll ask one for Corina as well. And first of all, I wanted to thank again Cospina and Catherine for the excellent presentation. And Corina, when you and I, we were talking about this, your presentation, you were hesitant that the kind of work we are doing is so different than what you are doing. Is there a fit? And I sort of insisted, no, we need to hear the work you and your team is doing, especially from a climate impact perspective. Do you want to talk about a little bit about the potential collaboration which may exist from a standards perspective on the work which OneAquaHealth is doing and some of the climate impact work you are doing?
Yes, and I would ask Alexander if he can to maybe he cannot project again the presentations. Yes, I just wanted to pose for one slide, that one with the standard. And by when he's doing this, I'm just telling, yes, indeed, when we discussed, I knew the content of your project, and I was a bit, I was feeling like I don't want to bore you, yes, with this kind of things, but I just want to emphasize this message that all this research and development project from my initiatives from my point of view are very nicely linked with the data input for deriving standards and therefore deriving change. So that was my message, and otherwise, yes, maybe my presentation was a bit disconnected with the others. Just a slide below, please. That one, the most crowded, and the one slide below, please. Yes, so this is the standard on water, CSRD standard on water. And here we can see on the left all these standards, yes, and E3 is the water standard. It's just a portion out of everything what means on reporting of sustainability, but it's very important, and to some cities is the most important maybe, and for some companies. So here, if we are looking at what this standard encompasses, it encompasses a clear vision on the strategy, identifying the impacts, risks, and opportunities, and also the policies, actions, going forward to metrics and targets, what you measure and what you report, what's essential to measure and to report. And in this area, I think all the data from the research and development are just gold. Because without this, at the municipality level, everything would be a plain discourse, and it will not be really fed by real data and real problems. So I think here the work on research and development is instrumental. And if it is to discuss on what projects we can collaborate, it's, I don't know, maybe starting to design this kind of standard architecture at the level of municipalities, or what other projects in the sustainability area you might have. KPMG is deploying very broad and complementary resources on gathering these challenges, being them on sustainability strategy or reporting or due diligence in a way. So things that are complementary with the data that you are, with the work you are doing. Just it's that we are maybe at a higher level and you are really getting information from the ground, if I may say so, which is essential.
Great. Thank you very much for that response. Yes, I think there are some possible synergies there, as you have articulated. With that, rest of our team members, any questions for our three external speakers? Alex, I guess you can stop sharing.
All right, if there are no questions, I would like to move on with the very last and very short part of our presentation. So as a part of the OneAquaHealth Open Information Hub infrastructure, OneAquaHealth Open Information, that's our project platform. The community module acts as the central gateway that enables via set of communication tools, the sharing of knowledge and the creation of synergies among stakeholders and other interested groups in the field of Europe and beyond. The established cooperation between various stakeholders will be continuously used for needs analysis, monitoring of innovation outputs also beyond the funding period. The community will help to shape policy initiatives and guidelines that go beyond the duration of the project. Members can create and join public and private groups, engage in conversations, and directly contact other members. So hurry up and register to the online community, engage, collaborate, inspire, and create a valuable impact to the field of One Health. Moving towards the end of our webinar, I would like to invite you to visit our Open Information Hub in order to exploit networking opportunities with our broad project audience, or get in touch with us via our Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn project channels. We're planning many more exciting events and activities, and we'll be happy if you're again part of them. So thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to talking to you and collaborating with you in the near future. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. Wish you a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you so
evening.
much. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.